However, I don't think the solution to having a bunch of murderers and rapists and paedophiles in Britain is, let's import some more.
It's a great line, Julia, but the majority of the people who come here are not rapists and paedophiles.
I didn't say they were. I didn't say they were. I would never have claimed that they were. I've categorically stated previously on this show, the majority of people, they're committing a crime by coming to our country, but there are too many.
A heated debate over migration just exploded when Julia Hartley Brewer challenged her guest over who should carry the responsibility for asylum accommodation. James Matthews argued that Britain has a duty to help those seeking asylum, while Julia pushed back, saying many communities have faced these pressures without their consent. The debate reached its peak when she asked, if responsibility matters so much, would he personally take asylum seekers into his own home? This clash reveals the bigger divide in Britain's migration debate: humanitarian duty versus public consent. Our goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers before the end of this month. So subscribe and join us as we break down the biggest political debates.
Very good morning to you, James.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. What do you make of Andy Burnham saying that middle-class people and middle-class families in their areas need to play their part, in his words, by accepting asylum seeker accommodation in their areas? Do you think he's right?
I think it's really interesting, the kind of outrage that it's sparked, which is undoubtedly going to happen, because I think whenever we talk about class, regardless of what the issue is we're talking about in Britain, it upsets a lot of people. But I think it is an interesting argument from Andy Burnham, because, you know, those people in working class communities who, as one of your callers said, have kind of faced the calls for integration, they've faced calls from a lot of lefties who are quite snobby in places like London, you know, the kind of Islington set, had them look down their nose at for years without even having the honest conversation about why people like me are pro-migration as opposed to anti-migration. And those conversations haven't taken place. So there has been this kind of separation between what is deemed to be working class and middle class communities for a long time. Whether this is the right argument to say you need to pull your weight more or that those communities need to be burdened less, I don't know. But I do think it is interesting, because class is something we are still very much scared.
I don't think this is an issue about class. This is basically if you've worked hard, or you're lucky, you've been brought up in a nicer area, you're probably less likely to have the cheap accommodation, the HMOs, the flats available, the high streets where there are places where these people are being put. You've not had to bear the full brunt of it. And he's basically saying we all need to share the burden. We need to accept. What interesting is the word accept. Except people in the working class areas haven't accepted. They've had it imposed on them. Even often when their local councils have opposed it. I mean, some councils want to sort of have more because they think for some reason this is a good thing for their local communities. But most councils have opposed it, and yet they've had them anyway. I thought this was a Prime Minister who cared about devolution and bringing power back to local people and local councils, but apparently not.
Well, it is an interesting kind of situation, because you're right. You know, those working class communities that are economically disadvantaged, post-industrial communities a lot of the time, you know, have been the areas where the Home Office has been able to secure available properties, but also relatively cheap properties, which is where before the situation of the hotels, which everyone seems to have been outraged about, was before where asylum seekers were being temporarily
but they weren't temporarily housed. I mean, my local hotel near the top of my road is a 10-minute walk away, and I live in a nice area. That hotel has been used for 4 years. It's not temporary.
Yeah, but not for the same people. The issue is, Julia,
how do you know?
The issue we've talked about.
Where do you think they've gone?
How do you know? How do you know?
How do you know? 4 years isn't temporary. How do you know that the same people aren't in there still?
Because the issue is that those people need to have their claims assessed. And if it's taken that long to assess their claims, that's the problem. But their claims get assessed. Now, they don't want to stay in the shabby, rundown, former nice hotel, as you've said,
it's not shabby.
Used to be, right? But no, seriously.
I've put family members up there.
It's about cost of income. You know, the owners of these places are only taking asylum contracts because they cannot fill their rooms otherwise. So it's those rooms that are the problem. Those accommodations are the problem. Now, people don't like those hotels. They liked even less the houses that people were put in. And that's the issue, is that where do you...
but the government, the Tory government and then the Labour government saying... We're moving people out of the hotels because basically they're a focus for people's anger. Move them into local bedsits. People won't know where they are. In fact, that's not the solution. Move them into local army barracks. Well, that's not the solution if they can still just wander into the local village. Can I come back to something you said earlier? Because you said you're pro-migration. What do you mean by I'm pro-migration? Because we are talking about
As a
people
general
illegally
concept.
entering the country on rubber dinghies, sometimes, 49 foot long, as we saw over the weekend.
Now, you see, I'm somebody who believes in our responsibility as a nation. So when it comes to asylum, we have, people have the right to claim asylum. Now, for a fact, because we've talked about this many times, my issue comes when that assessment needs to be done, how quickly the assessment is done. We had 15 years of Tory austerity that stripped the Home Office of its resources. So it wasn't even able to do its basic functions. That's the problem. Now, I've got a mate whose girlfriend, right, from South America, he's Northern Irish, trying to get all of their visa paperwork done. All this. It's been 2.5 years now, Julia. That's ridiculous. We are failing as a nation because of that. And this is an issue that stems from that. My issue is not with the small boats. My issue is not with those arrivals. I like what Andy Burnham says about opening more safe routes because I would like people not to drown in the channel. But at the end of the day, I believe that people have the fundamental right, which is an international human right, to claim asylum. It is our responsibility as a nation to deal with the paperwork.
Here's the thing. Do they have, you can argue this, most of these people are economic migrants rather than claiming asylum. They've gone through numerous safe countries. If they are fleeing a country that is war-torn, the vast majority of their fellow countrymen and women are living in the countries nearby. I don't know why these people are suddenly so much more deserving of asylum in Britain than in, say, Sudan or Mauritania or wherever. It seems to me to be people have a right. A lot of those laws, they were set up at a very, very, very different time. I don't believe that people do have a right to just pick and choose. Oh, I think this is where I'll live now. I think I'm going to move to the other side of the world and I'm just going to want to live here because I live in a basket case country. I don't think that we have a duty to the rest of the world to take in every single person who's got a bad life.
I'm afraid it's only going to get worse, Julia. So we need to seriously ask ourselves, what do we want? Well, from our values, really, because that's where we're saying In Glasgow, 30 miles from me here, you are not reporting on the grooming gangs that are white. You are not reporting on those people, right? If you were, then I would say, yes, I understand this.
We
but
report
it's not.
on major crimes. We report on stories.
How, James, you know that you are spreading the agenda.
It's not an agenda. The point is, we already have enough of our own wrong-uns who should be dealt with far more quickly and sternly. However, I don't think the solution to having a bunch of murderers and rapists and paedophiles in Britain is, let's import some more.
It's a great line, Julia, but the majority of the people who come here are not rapists and paedophiles.
I didn't say they were. I didn't say they were. I would never have claimed that they were. I've categorically stated previously on this show, the majority of people, they're committing a crime by coming to our country, but there are too many. You listen, the stats are very, very clear. And the countries that publish the stats, whether it's Germany, whether it's France, whether it's Austria, whether it's Italy, whether it's Denmark, whether it's Sweden, and in Britain we're starting to see it. The criminality rate from different nationalities is starkly different. It is true. Per capita, the criminality rate, even allowing for the fact they are younger men, largely they're men, and largely they're younger, and therefore more likely to commit crime than any other demographic. Their criminality rate of certain countries, people from certain countries, is off the scale higher than from other countries.
This belief is rooted in an idea.
It's fact.
This belief of yours is rooted in an idea, Julia, that Britain is somehow a land of milk and honey and good people, and we're all the best. And people out there, the others in other countries, are scary and savages and barbaric.
Absolute nonsense. I'm not claiming that at all.
Our country is made up of migrants, of immigrants from all over the world. Our
country is largely made up of people whose families have lived here for hundreds of thousands of years.
We are seeing a rise of ethno-nationalism. We're seeing a rise of racism. We're seeing a rise of intolerance and xenophobia, Julia, and it comes back to the fact that you are scaring your listeners every day.
It's all my fault because people have noticed there's a problem.
Not just your
fault. We're not allowed to notice facts. Can't notice facts. James, if you're under the illusion that the risk of somebody coming from a country where they have high levels of criminality, very, very little concern for the rights of children or women or gay people, that those people are not a bigger threat to people in this country than people coming from countries which do have similar values to us, I think you're living in cloud cuckoo land.
Well, let me say, as the feminist and lefty woke whatever amongst us, Julia, let me tell you that
you're a feminist.
I'm very much concerned.
By the way, all in favour of men who claim they're women in women's toilets, right? Feminists.
About those values, because I believe trans women are women, Julia. There's a difference between us,
Because you believe in fairy tales.
No, because gender's a social construct and women are women. You're talking about sex, which is biological. It's completely different.
I'm talking about women.
Let's not open that can of worms. Let's finish this one first, right?
We're going to have to finish.
What I would say to you just briefly before we finish, right, is that it comes down to our basic values. Are we shirkers? Do we shirk our responsibilities in this country? No, we don't.
We don't have any responsibility. We don't have a responsibility to the rest of the world.
If somebody arrives on your doorstep and they claim they need help, you assess that claim, and if they need it, they need it. If they
James,
don't,
can I ask? Can we maybe give out your personal address to any asylum sequence, and you just take them in with your personal responsibility?
I will if you will. I will if you will.
No, I won't, because I know the risks. But there we are, James. Deep sighs. I'd love to talk to you for longer. I just don't think I could disagree with you more on so many things.
So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also share your thoughts in the comments.